Welcome to Full Moon Film Buff, episode 35. This time, we're talking about The Rats Are Coming, The Werewolves Are Here from 1972. I watched this on Tubi. I had not seen this before. As always, let's start by talking about the prominent crew and cast. The film was written and directed by Andy Milligan, with effects makeup by Lois Marsh. The cast includes Hope Stansbury as Monica Mooney, Jackie Scarvelis as Diana, Noel Collins as Mortimer Mooney, Joan Ogden as Phoebe Mooney, Douglas Fair as Paul Mooney, Ian Innes as Gerald, Berwick Kaler as Malcolm Mooney, Andy Milligan as Mr. Macabre, billed as Chris Shore, Andy Milligan also as the gunsmith, billed as George Clark, and Lillian Frith as Rebecca, billed as Lillian Frith. I'd never heard of Andrew Milligan before I researched this film. He's an interesting character. He not only wrote, directed, and acted two different parts in this film, he was also the cinematographer, editor, and costume designer. He used 5 different names in the credits to disguise just how much he did on this film. He was, by all reports, a challenging and difficult man to get along with, by his own acknowledgement as well. Almost all his films had a budget under $20,000, and this film seems to be no exception. He worked in off-Broadway theater as well. He was accused several times of physically, emotionally, and sexually abusing both male and female actors on his sets, multiple times. There is another Andy Milligan werewolf movie that I'll be watching soon. I think I found it on YouTube, but I don't have high hopes. I wish I could have found any information about Lois Marsh. This is her only IMDb credit, and the makeup jobs are easily the best part of this film. No. I do not recommend this film, but for a whole new set of reasons that I have not seen before yet in this project. First, this movie is very seriously overacted. Everyone is putting on an arch accent, lots of dramatic head turns and hair flipping. The costuming is bad, just the tackiest thing ever. It honestly looks like this was costumed out of whatever they could find in the nearest thrift shop. Mostly the film is just people standing around talking with each other without actually saying anything. Lots of, I can't tell you that. And it's 70 minutes of delay to get to the actual movie. The story could have been told in 15 minutes, but it got stretched out to 90. The camera is almost always really tight on the actors, not giving us any sense of space, what's going on. I suspect that this was to hide poor sets and set design, but I don't know that for sure. That's just the impression I got from watching. There is hardly any action, and what action we do get is shot really poorly. The camera moves in, frankly, some stomach churning kind of ways, so you have no idea what's going on. There's just action. And this movie is camp through and through. It is a camp movie. Now, to be fair to the creators, I do see a lot of evidence for the passion and the creativity that goes into filmmaking. This is low budget, guerrilla style filmmaking at its best and worst. It just doesn't come together for me. Your mileage, of course, may vary. 2 interesting historical tidbits I found about this movie both relate to the guerrilla style, low budget nature of the filmmaking. Andy Milligan scraped enough money together to fly over to England in 1969, where he shot 4 films back to back to back to back, one right after the other. Then he brought the film back to New York and edited the films here. When the runtime on this film was not as long as he was contractually obligated to deliver, he came up with this 20-minute subplot about the rats and shot it essentially on the steps of his own New York home to pad out the runtime. Now, let's go over the synopsis. Set in England at the very end of the 19th century, the reclusive Mooney family lives in their country estate. 2 hooligans attack Malcolm, the youngest member of the family, and light him on fire. Mortimer and Phoebe, Malcolm's oldest siblings, rescue him. They tend to his injuries and return him to his chains. Phoebe blames Malcolm's escape on their younger sister, the sadistic, spoiled Monica. For some reason, letting him free means she hates him. Phoebe pleads with their father, Papa Mooney, to reprimand Monica, but Papa grows so angry that he collapses. Phoebe administers one of his life-saving injections. This family is seriously dysfunctional. Phoebe and Mortimer discuss the anticipated arrival of their youngest sister, Diana, who is bringing her new husband, Gerald, to meet the family. Oh, rabbits and chickens live in Malcolm's room. Papa, a retired doctor, is furious that Diana married without his permission. He sent her to medical school in Scotland so she could continue his experiments. I have no idea why she can't continue the experiments and be married at the same time. During lunch, Monica also rages against Diana for marrying without the family's permission. So dysfunctional. Diana and Gerald arrive. Mortimer and Phoebe warn her that Papa is angry. Phoebe asks Papa to be lenient because Diana is not the same as them. She doesn't explain what that means. Papa won't even meet Gerald. He is an absolute drama queen. Diana assures Gerald that they will be happy, even though he very understandably wishes they had remained in Scotland. Diana tells Gerald about her abnormal brother. Diana also explains that after Papa's first wife died, he married Diana's mother. She died mysteriously after giving birth to Diana, but Monica has remained jealous of Papa's love for Diana and his late second wife. So Diana is only a half-sibling to the rest. Interesting. Diana runs down the basics of the family, names and ages. Gerald feels compelled to share that his father was a child rapist and murderer. His mother died of grief. Gerald is an orphan and an artist, so she didn't marry him for his money. Diana sees Papa, who repeats she should not have married until after tests had been conducted. Papa orders her to divorce, but Diana refuses, stating she hopes her love with Gerald will make up for her miserable family life. Seriously, sister, fix your own baggage first. Papa collapses during their argument. Phoebe gives Diana the serum with which to inject him. Diana is distressed to see his dosage has significantly increased during her absence. Diana informs Phoebe that Papa will die soon. Phoebe wails he means more to her than anyone else in the family. Phoebe makes cryptic comments concerning her worries about the full moon. Seriously, the entire family are drama queens. This movie is exhausting. Monica tortures Malcolm a bit when she takes him dinner. Monica tries to start a food fight during dinner. After dinner, Diana attempts to soothe Gerald's justified and growing fears. During the night, Gerald is frightened by strange noises. He does not realize the noise is Phoebe, Mortimer, and Monica tearing apart and eating a live chicken. The house is filled with smoke for some reason. When Gerald sees the debris left by the Moonies' late-night meal, Phoebe blames Malcolm. Gerald asks her to convince Diana to return to Scotland. Phoebe joins the "Diana had no right to marry" chorus. Monica tortures a rat. Outside, Diana reveals to a pleased Mortimer that she is pregnant, which she hopes will revive the disintegrating family. Oh, not another generation of this dysfunction. In the village, Monica visits shopkeeper Mr. McCarver. Monica demands a new pet rat, and McCarver shows her a cage of rats, which he has fed only flesh, both human and animal, since they were born. Why? Fascinated, Monica buys the entire lot. Monica hides in Gerald's closet and tries to kill him. She falls on his mother's silver crucifix, the only thing he has to remember his mom, and wails in pain, giving off smoke. Diana seems upset to see the crucifix. While Monica plays with her new rats, one bites her, so she kills it. She then takes the animals back to McCarver, and when he refuses to return her money, she gleefully burns him to death. Later, Phoebe and Mortimer discuss the upcoming full moon and when to sedate Papa. Mortimer accidentally reveals Diana is pregnant, and Phoebe worries the child could turn out like Malcolm. I worry it's going to turn out like any of them. Phoebe hints of an unpleasant explanation for Malcolm's abnormality, but refuses to disclose it. That afternoon, Diana finds a silversmith/gunsmith. That's a really interesting combination. She buys a thoroughly modern pistol and coaxes him into making bullets out of Gerald's silver cross. His only memento of his mother? Cold. Back at the estate, Monica plays outside with her friend Rebecca. They are a disturbed pair. Out of nowhere, Rebecca attempts to blackmail Monica, and an infuriated Monica brutally murders Rebecca. Upon returning home, Diana meets with Papa. When Diana tells Papa she is pregnant, however, he ecstatically announces they must test to assure her baby is born healthy. Papa finally consents to see Gerald, who is astonished when Papa relates that 3 centuries earlier, his great-grandfather was bitten by a diseased animal. The family has been cursed ever since. Papa explains that because Diana's mother was of clean blood, Diana is the only Mooney who can marry, although it is still risky to let her have her baby. Contemplating this information, Gerald calculates Papa's age. The man confirms that he is 180 years old, and his longevity comes from the serum that he developed. He does not also figure out that Papa's first wife had to be related to him since she wasn't of clean blood. Ew. As they talk, however, the full moon rises and Papa growls. Much to his horror, Gerald finally discovers the Moonies' secret. They are werewolves. Phoebe, Mortimer, and Diana rush in with the sedative as Gerald fights off Papa. Papa dies from the exertion. Crushed, Phoebe confesses that she is Malcolm's mother. Not only is she Papa's daughter, but she would have been 14 at the time. Icky. So that's why Malcolm is inbred. She poisoned Diana's mother out of jealousy. After her revelation, Phoebe turns into a werewolf, as does Mortimer. Gerald and Diana escape. In their room, Diana shows Gerald her new pistol and silver bullets. Monica and Malcolm transform. After Malcolm kills Monica, Mortimer strangles Malcolm. Gerald shoots and kills both Phoebe and Mortimer. Afterwards, Gerald and Diana discuss their future. Gerald declares that they will return to Scotland. I'm not sure why he wants to leave now. I mean, all of the most unpleasant people are gone. Diana tells Gerald she no longer needs him now that he has assured the continuation of the Mooney line. Diana reveals that unlike the rest of the family, she can become a werewolf at will. After transforming, she kills her husband. In the final scene, set a few months later, the very pregnant Diana relaxes with a neighbor, Mrs. Wyszynski, who praises Diana for recovering so quickly from the shock of discovering her murdered family. As Mrs. Wyszynski mentions baby names, Diana placidly states that she only wants the baby to be healthy. We don't really get a transformation scene in this movie. Every time a member of the Mooney family transforms or begins to transform, the camera cuts away to someone else and we see their reaction shot, and then it cuts back and they're in full werewolf makeup. That said, the werewolf makeup jobs are easily the best part of this movie. Lots of fur, very few minor facial applications to change the shape to something more lupine. It's a shame that it took us 80 minutes to get to them, because maybe we would have had a better movie if it just been them in the werewolf form. It's not. Now, this film does stick to the werewolf lore about the full moon triggering the involuntary transformations, leaning in so far as to name the family the Moonies, just in case you didn't get it. It also sticks with the weaknesses to silver and implies a weakness to fire. Why else would the hooligans light Malcolm on fire at the beginning? There's lots easier ways to kill someone. It also leans hard into the family curse aspect of lycanthropy that we sometimes see, going so far as to use lycanthropy as a metaphor for inbreeding, incest, and the abuse that goes along with that. So let's dig into that. I'm honestly not certain that Andrew Mulligan intended for this interpretation to be in the film, but it most certainly is there. So let's dispassionately lay out the history of the Mooney family as best we can from the tidbits that the movie gets us. We know that sometime around 1600, a Mooney was bitten by a diseased animal, insinuated to be a wolf, and became a werewolf as a consequence. We don't know many details, but we know this individual had at least one child after being infected and passed this curse on. That individual had at least one child who themselves had a son born about 1720, who is the Papa Mooney of this film. Since Papa does call Phoebe his eldest, we can safely assume that Papa does not have children until about 1860, when he was 140 years old. Why did he wait that long? Based on what we know about Diana and her mother, whom I feel seriously sad for. Imagine what her life was like in this house. We know she was around for at least 9 months, because she got pregnant and had Diana and was killed afterwards. She was probably there for longer, so she was there for multiple cycles of the full moon. We do know, because of the mom though, that this curse can be diluted in some way. It would be nice to know how Diana's child is going to turn out. That would give us some more information. But this all leaves us some gaps that we must guess at. First, why aren't there a lot more werewolves running around? I mean, if you look at any one of my 8 great-great-grandfathers, they have literally hundreds of descendants at my generational level. Even if each individual in the family only had just 2 offspring, there should be at least 16 werewolves, not 6 that we know of. It is possible, I guess, that there are other werewolves descended from the Mooney clan somewhere else. If breeding with individuals without the curse does dilute the blood, it is possible that Diana's child will be born normal. He or she will just be a normal child. Cross your fingers, right? And as normal as you can be when you're raised by a werewolf. If this is the case, then it's possible that there are other branches of the tree who married non-cursed individuals and rid their family tree of this lycanthropy in this way. A more likely answer is that it's pretty hard to find someone to marry you and procreate with you voluntarily if you become a literal killing machine once a month. The original werewolf in the family may have been already married when he or she was bitten and may have sired a child before the extent of the curse was understood. But that firstborn werewolf would have had a tough time courting. I do not imagine what it would be like to try and date under those conditions. I'm not saying it's impossible, just tough. Which leaves us with the unfortunate implication that the Mooney family has been either intermingling or relying on power imbalances or force to obtain breeding partners. This family tree has got to look more like a single branch. This might also explain why Papa Mooney waited until he was 140 to begin the next generation. I can imagine the Mooney matriarch or patriarch before Papa declaring that the family line and curse was going to end, putting their foot down and preventing any ancestral shenanigans and other icky mating strategies. After their passing, Papa married a sister or cousin. That pair had 3 kids. Papa had 1 child with his own daughter. Papa also conceived with a woman not related to him, somehow convincing her to marry him and bear Diana, before now 16-year-old Phoebe poisoned her. So what does this tell us about the Mooney family? First, they can't leave the estate. Well, I mean, Diana can. She's in control of her transformations, but the rest are stuck with each other for the rest of time. They have the same arguments, getting on the same nerves, no relief in sight, no potential new relationships, just waiting for Papa to die. It sounds like hell to me. Mortimer and Phoebe do act in this film as much like an old married couple as they do brother and sister, which is a little disturbing. There's no hints that they do have a relationship, but it wouldn't surprise me. Malcolm is the normal, natural outcome of inbreeding, even among werewolves. The family ultimately self-destructs. It was always going to implode. Diana and Gerald might be the spark that lit the final bonfire, but the wood was already stacked and soaked in gasoline. The conflagration was coming. I mentioned before that this movie is camp, and so let's take just a second and talk about what camp is and how you can identify it. Camp is characterized by the intentional and exaggerated embrace of kitsch, irony, theatricality, and extravagance. It is associated with a love for the artificial and the unnatural. Camp aesthetics are found in all kinds of forms of expression and art, including fashion, film, literature, pop culture. This film is a key example of camp, and so we're gonna use it as an example. First, exaggeration. Camp exaggerates elements to the point of extravagance. This can include dramatic fashion choices, the overly theatrical performances, or artistic expressions that deliberately push the boundaries of the convention. That element is here in spades. Camp also includes irony. A strong sense of irony is a defining aspect of the camp aesthetic. Camp embraces elements that are considered cheeky, tacky, culturally outdated, but it does so with a sense of self-awareness that acknowledges their artificiality and the playfulness of the expression. They're doing this on purpose. Again, this element is all over the film. Camp also revels in artifice. They embrace the constructed or stylized nature of its elements, right? So if it's a film, it embraces the film nature. If it's music, it embraces that. This can include bold and theatrical makeup styles, flamboyant costumes, settings that are intentionally theatrical instead of naturalistic. Yep, that's all over this film. Camp is also very playful. It's often associated with a sense of fun, a sense of not taking anything seriously. It can be whimsical and irreverent. It can challenge traditional notions of taste and seriousness, often helping to move and drive art expression forward by deliberately shaking up some things that might have come the status quo and become boring. There is quite a bit of playfulness in this film, and honestly, playfulness is my favorite aspect of camp. It's the thing that draws me to camp mostly. Camp also loves cultural references. Camp often draws on a wide range of references, incorporating elements from high culture, low culture, specific subcultures. This eclectic mix adds layers of meaning and a depth to camp performances that sometimes you miss on first viewing because you're not a part of the right culture groups to get all of the references. In a way, camp is like a cultural collage. And again, this is one of the things that camp does for art. By drawing together all of these references and throwing them into a new pot, sometimes you get a tasty new recipe. Sometimes you get garbage. Unfortunately, this film is, in my opinion, in that latter camp. I also don't really feel like this film explores a lot of cultural references. It is possible that they're there and I'm just not getting them because I'm not from the right subcultures, so I have to leave that open. Next, camp very often celebrates the marginalized. Often camp is associated with marginalized cultures that are considered out of the mainstream. This can include queer culture, drag performances, and any other expressions that challenge normal conventions for the way the world is, quote, supposed to work. From what I understand, this is a very, very big part of Andrew Millican's complete body of work, but I don't see a whole lot of it here. There's not a whole lot of discussion of marginalized cultures here. These camp aesthetics have influenced various artistic movements and continues to be a vibrant and influential aspect of contemporary culture. Like a lot of aesthetic styles, some people really love it. Others can't stand it. I must admit, when I like a camp movie, I tend to really love it, especially sci-fi and camp films like Rocky Horror Picture Show, Plan 9 from Outer Space, Flash Gordon, Barbarella, Beetlejuice, Little Shop of Horrors, or perhaps my favorite, Big Trouble in Little China, are all great. I love them. But most camp films tend to exhaust me. I know that films like Showgirls, Mommy Dearest, Pink Flamingos, Valley of the Dolls, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, or The Birdcage have their own fans, but they really aren't for me. That said, there are a few major camp films that are not sci-fi or horror that I do enjoy, like Hairspray, Reefer Madness, or Xanadu are good examples of that type. Whether you like camp or don't is up to you, and frankly, you'll know for yourself, but sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So, if you like lycanthropes, like, share, and subscribe. Next, I plan on discussing Dr. Jekyll versus the Wolfman from 1972. Keep your eye on the moon, a silver bullet in the chamber, and we'll see you back here next episode.